Memory and Mercy, a reflection on Lindsey Graham and complicated legacies. It's one thing to shoot yourself in the foot. Just don't reload the gun. Lindsey Graham. Since Senator Lindsey Graham's sudden passing over the weekend, I've watched two very different conversations unfold. Some have offered heartfelt tributes. Others have responded with celebration, indifference, or open contempt. Given his long and often polarizing public life, none of that surprises me. But as a follower of Jesus with a public voice, I found myself pondering this one question all week. How should followers of Jesus respond when someone with a complicated legacy dies? First, let me address the elephant in the room. There are those who may feel I am being naive in using the word complicated to describe his legacy. So let me be clear. I do not believe death suddenly erases a person's record, nor do I think every public figure deserves universal praise once they've passed. Senator Graham's life, like every public life, will continue to be examined, debated, and evaluated. Some of those conversations are both necessary and appropriate. To keep it a buck, I have vehemently disagreed with Senator Graham on matters of policy and public life, and I will not ignore or rewrite those realities. Neither, however, gives me permission to surrender my humanity. One of the great temptations of our political moment is believing that conviction requires contempt. Jesus never taught that. He certainly confronted hypocrisy. He spoke truth to power. He challenged corrupt leaders without hesitation. But even his strongest rebukes were never invitations to delight in another person's death or downfall. In fact, Scripture consistently invites us to a higher standard. The book of Proverbs warns us not to rejoice when our enemy falls. The Apostle Paul tells us to bless those who persecute us and to refuse to be overcome by evil, choosing instead to overcome evil with good. Jesus himself commands us to love our enemies and pray for those who oppose us. None of those commands ask us to abandon discernment. All of them require us to abandon hatred. We can tell the truth about a person's life without becoming cruel. We can acknowledge real harm without celebrating death. We can critique policies while still praying for grieving families. Perhaps that's what Christian maturity looks like in a polarized age. Not revisionist history or selective memory, but refusing to allow someone else's life or death to determine the condition of our own hearts. Death is one of the few moments that reminds us all of the same uncomfortable truth. Every life, no matter how celebrated or criticized, eventually stands before God. Not social media, not a political party, not public opinion, before God. That reality should shape both our memory and our mercy. One day, the final account of every life, including mine and yours, will not be settled by the loudest voices online, but by the only judge who sees perfectly, loves perfectly, and judges perfectly. What I'm reading. Ken by Tayari Jones. I'm giving special attention to this read since my virtual summer book club officially launches this week. What I'm listening to. I don't have any standouts in the listening category this week either. Bummer. What KS is up to. This past Sunday, we continued our summer series, KS at the Movies, which is our attempt to copy Jesus' illustrative genius by using movies as modern-day parables. The Week 2 message was based on the movie Inside Out. I'll post a link to our church's podcast, which is now on Substack as well, so you can check out the recap. The Week 3 message will be based on the movie Creed 2, as we explore what happens when more of anything becomes more of everything. Following Jesus is hard. Don't do it alone. Subscribe to Work These Words with Sean Dreer to get help from a trusted guide.